Hey everybody, this is Joe with EFI, and today we're going to talk about SmartCanvas, part of Digital StoreFront. Online customizable print products are a valuable addition to almost any print shop's portfolio, letting customers tweak their content and layout to suit their needs. But often, product template building and configuration are complicated, and they require VDP software licensing and special skill sets. And while customers might want a free-form design experience, marketing and branding guidelines require protection of the original design standards. Enter SmartCanvas, the customized and variable data printing tool that comes standard with EFI Digital StoreFront. Let's take a look. Now I'm going to take a break from speaking and let one of my EFI colleagues handle it from here.
The first step is to log into Digital StoreFront with your administrator credentials. From the Administration homepage, open the Manage SmartCanvas Templates page. Click Create New Design. In the Create Template window, enter a name for your template and a brief description. The name is required. The description is optional but recommended because it will be shown in the description column on the Manage SmartCanvas Templates page and can help you locate a template. For example, if you have several business card templates with similar names, the description can help you tell them apart. Selecting Allow Buyer to Download PDF will let buyers download a PDF file so they can preview a customized product based on the template. Next, we select an image gallery or galleries, shift-click to select two or more at a time, and click the arrow to move them into the box on the right. This will make them available to us as we are designing the template and to buyers when they are customizing products based on the template. Our template is now set up, so let's click Create Template to move on. We are now in the SmartCanvas Designer. Note the name of our template in the top left corner. The first task when designing any template in SmartCanvas is to define document settings for it. So let's click File, Document Settings. Since we are designing a business card with a finished size of 3.5 inches wide by 2 inches tall, we must enter those dimensions in the width and height fields, making sure our unit of measurement is set to inch. Note that this is not one of the standard formats. The designer automatically changes the orientation to landscape because the width we entered exceeds the height. We will not select the Resize Also Page Content option because for this template we will constrain the dimensions to 3.5 by 2 inches. We will specify 2 pages because this is going to be a two-sided business card. Facing pages will show the pages side by side or facing, but for a business card we don't need this, so let's leave the option deselected. Let's set a margin of 0.125, that's 1/8 of an inch on all sides, and let's set bleed margins of 0.125 as well to ensure there is no gap or white space between any artwork designed to meet an edge of the card. In this card we will have bleeds, so we want to set bleed margins. The document settings look good, so let's click OK. Note that we now have 2 pages in our template. We can toggle between them either on the page manager or on the design canvas itself. Note also that our margins are indicated with a magenta outline and they are shown only on the active or selected page. The bleed margins we defined are shown in a reddish glow around the borders of the card. Note that we can toggle between showing and hiding the bleed margins with the Show Hide Bleed button on the toolbar. For now, we'll leave them on. We can increase or decrease the design canvas using the zoom selector in the page manager. That's better. So we're not quite finished setting up our template just yet. We have 2 more tasks to tend to. First, we need to make sure the fonts we want to use in the template and make available to buyers who are customizing the template are in SmartCanvas. We select Manage Fonts from the File menu to open the Font Manager. The list contains all fonts in SmartCanvas and available for the template. We can select any font in the list and get an on-screen quick brown fox preview. We can also add or delete fonts. Note that only administrators can add fonts in SmartCanvas, buyers cannot. We are going to use Calibri for the card, and it is loaded in the system, so let's click OK to move on. So there's just one more thing we need to do before we get designing, and that is choose a page and position to define how the pages in the template will be arranged when the artwork is generated for printing. Back on the File menu, we select Manage Impositions. On the Impositions Manager, we can either select an existing imposition or create a new one. We will simply select our predefined business card imposition. Note that we could click Edit and adjust any of the settings for layout, signature, or scale to suit our production equipment. For example, we could add half-inch gutters around the cards. Let's undo that for now because we just want to use our business card imposition that is set to print 8 up with no gutters, and click OK. So now we are ready to begin designing our business card. Let's start by adding some text to the card. We do so by selecting the text tool on the toolbar. The text frame is added with the placeholder text Enter Your Text here. Note that 2 dynamic tabs are now on the context panel, Text and Layout. The Text tab lets us define the text style and text frame options. Let's take a look at the text frame style options. All new text added to the template is assigned to the default text style. We can click the down arrow and either select an existing style or create a new one by clicking the Add icon. We next click the Edit icon to open the Text Style Manager. We can then name our new paragraph style and define an extensive list of style properties: font, font color, font size, line height, text alignment, letter spacing, as well as tabs and indents, including bullet list. And we can even add rules, overlines, and underlines to spruce up our text. Let's define a new paragraph style called Head 1 to use in our business card. The Rich Text Format option will give us and buyers access to rich text editing tools when selecting the text icon on the text frame. So if we turn on Rich Text Format, when we click the Edit icon, we will have rich text formatting options for text in the frame in the Character Style section that opens on the Text tab. If Rich Text Format is turned off, we will be able to change only the text but not the formatting of the text, which will be constrained to the paragraph style applied to the text frame. Note that if we turn on both the Rich Text Format and the Open Window for Editing options, the Text Edit icon will then open the Rich Text Editor window with rich text editing options for formatting the text. Note that if the Rich Text Format option is off and the Open Window for Editing option is on, only the text can be changed in the editing window, not the format of the text. Let's go back into the Rich Text Editor window and look at a nifty feature that lets us change the background color of the editor window. So if we are using white text reverse out of a dark background in our template, we will not be able to see the white text against a white Rich Text Editor window. With this feature, we can change it to gray or black to facilitate editing. Next, let's note that we can adjust the character style of selected text if we want it to be different from the paragraph style that is applied to it. This means we can have text formatted differently within the same text frame, which is very useful. Next, let's take a look at the text frame options. We can choose how copy fitting will work in a selected text frame. Options are no copy fitting, shrink text to fit, shrink and grow, and shrink and grow no line wrap. With no copy fitting, the text will not scale or be automatically adjusted based on the size of the text frame. For example, if the text is too large for the text frame, it will simply be cut off. If we select Shrink Text to Fit, text that is too large to fit inside the frame will be scaled down or shrunk to fit the frame. Shrink and Grow will scale text up or down to fit inside the text frame. shrink and grow no line wrap will cause all text to be scaled up or down to fit the size of the text frame, but will not wrap text to a second line, so all text will be on one line. Next, note that we can choose a hyphenation option for text in the frame. Options include no hyphenation and various language-driven hyphenation rules. The Pixel Perfect Text Preview option anti-aliases or smooths the text to better approximate on screen how it will appear when printed. The Open Window for Editing option, as we saw earlier, opens the text in the selected text frame in an editing window, either with or without rich text format options, depending on whether the rich text format option is selected. Finally, there is vertical alignment, which specifies how the text is aligned top to bottom in the text frame. Okay, so back to the text we are adding to our template. Let's go with a standard business card fare, first and last name, street address, city, state, zip, telephone number, email. Now, because we are going to use form fields to help buyers out, we are going to enter the placeholder text in variable format, meaning they are enclosed by two sets of square brackets. Let's start with the first and last names. Let's enter first name and last name. Now let's go to the Data tab to set up our form field. In the Form Fields section, we click Create Form Field, and we will change the default name to First Name. Note that SmartCanvas automatically encloses the form field name in double square brackets, designating it as a variable. And we will click the Edit Form Field icon to open the Form Field Editor, and let's enter a display name. This is the name that will be shown to buyers on the web form. And we will enter a default value for preview purposes. For our sample business card, we are not going to require the first name, only the last name. We will choose the type as text and select the appropriate category. In this case, it is first name. And we will specify a maximum text length of 25 characters. Everything looks good, so let's move on. We will repeat the process for the last name. Note that variables first name and last name will be replaced with the default values we specified. Now let's look at the Text Layout tab. This is where we define how the text will appear, size and position on the page, rotation, paddings, which is how much space is between the edges of the text and the borders of the text frame, the background of the frame, the area behind the text, the border of the frame, and the opacity or transparency of the frame. You will notice that we have added the remaining text elements and associated form fields to our business card by repeating the process above. Now that we have the text on our business card, let's add an image, a logo placeholder. We will let buyers replace this image with an image of their own, one they upload. Note that we can position the image freely and rotate. Use the handles to resize. If we wanted to wax artsy, we could even use custom positioning to conceal part of the image. Okay, so that's the front of our basic business card with text and image. So next we have to decide how much control we want to give buyers over the placeholder elements when they are customizing their business cards. We will let buyers change both the text and image to truly customize their business cards based on the template. So let's select the image and go to the Buyer Side tab and choose what modifications we want buyers to be able to make. Move, resize, rotate, and so on. Adjust the border, size, width, and height, etc., etc. Selecting change image will let buyers select an image from any galleries we specify or upload an image. Turning to our text, we can let buyers move, resize, and rotate the text frame and so on. Note that we can let buyers apply different paragraph styles to the text and then specify what paragraph styles we want to allow. We can let buyers choose fonts or force them to use the font we used for the placeholder text when creating the template. Note that the tab is dynamic. If we let buyers choose fonts, the list of available fonts is shown, and we can select as many or as few as we want to make available to them. The same with colors they can choose. So now we have a basic business card with image and text placeholders that buyers can replace when customizing their own business cards. Let's go to Buyer Side View by selecting Buyer Side from the View menu and see how the card will appear to buyers on the storefront. Notice the web form buyers can use to get their information on the card in real time. Note also that as soon as we change the name, it changes on the card preview. And buyers can also upload their own image and edit its formatting. So we could stop there and call it a day. But why do that when we can use a few other advanced capabilities of SmartCanvas to amp up our basic business card, switches, and variables? Let's return to the admin view and see how they work. Switches turn layers on or off, meaning the layer will be visible or hidden based on a rule we define. In our sample case, we want to have the back of our business card show an image of a city skyline based on what the buyer enters in the city form field when filling out the address. To do this, we have added two layers to our business card template, ATL and WASH for Atlanta and Washington. On the ATL layer, we place the image of the Atlanta skyline. On the WASH layer, we place the image of the Washington, D.C. skyline. Now we need to create a switch. So let's go to the Data tab and click Add Switch. Click the Edit Switch icon, the trusty little pencil. On the Switch Designer, let's define the conditions for our first switch. We'll replace apples with the variable we designed for the form field called City. And we'll replace pears with the Just Text option. Now we will click in the field and replace Just Text with Atlanta. So our conditional statement reads, if city equals Atlanta. Now we'll click OK. Back on the Data tab, let's change the name of the switch from the default switch to ATL. Now let's repeat the process, this time creating a switch for the Washington, D.C. layer. Now let's associate the ATL switch with the Atlanta layer and the WASH switch with the Washington layer. Note that the switches are associated with the layers. And now let's see how they work on the buyer view. Let's click View, Buyer Side. And let's enter Atlanta in the city field and note that the Atlanta skyline image shows on the back of the card. Likewise, with the Washington, D.C. image, when we enter Washington in the city field, the Washington skyline shows on the back of the card. Finally, let's look at variables in SmartCanvas, which will let us further amp up our business card. With variables, we can set up business rules to drive how the form field data buyers enter is displayed. We've already used variables in our form fields, but we can use them in some other ways too. We can include the bracketed variables in text blocks. So if we have a form field with a variable called discount level, we can embed the variable in a text block so that it will be dynamically populated based on buyer input. So let's create a discount level data list form field variable that will present the buyer with a list of options. This would be useful for a buyer who wanted to have cards with varying discount levels, 10%, 25%, 50%, to give out to prospects at different events. Next, let's embed the variable in a text block on our card. So let's see how this works on the buyer side. Note that the variable changes when the buyer selects a different discount value from the form field list. Next, let's add another, more sophisticated variable rule to our text block. So note that we have added yet another form field variable to our business card called salutation. Like discount level, it is a list type form field. So we want to use it in a rule that says if the buyer selected a salutation in the salutation form field, use the salutation and the last name, else use the first and last names in the text block. So let's go to the Data tab and create that rule. So we click Add Variable, and then click the Edit Variable icon. On the Variable Designer, we click the Add If block icon, the white plus sign in an orange box. This will open the if-then-else logic tree. So let's first create our if statement. Click in the first blank variable box, and in the data or text box, we select the salutation variable. We will leave the equals operator alone and leave the second variable box as is. Our if statement now reads if salutation is blank. Next, let's define our then statement. Let's click in the variable box, and in the data or text field, select first name, and click the add icon, the plus sign, to add another statement to the rule. Click in the new data or text field box and select last name. And now let's add the context for our sentence, is awaiting your call. Note that the prefix and suffix fields give us several options for how the text is displayed, line break, tab, or space before or after the text. In this case, let's choose a prefix before last name to put a space between the first name and the last name, and between the last name and the sentence text we added. In the else statement, let's click in the blank variable box, and in the data or text field, select salutation. Click the add icon and the empty variable box, and in the new data or text field, we select last name. And let's add our sentence text, is awaiting your call. Finally, let's add a prefix space before the last name and before the sentence text. So the entire logic statement for the variable rule now reads, if salutation field is empty, use first name and last name plus is awaiting your call, else. If the salutation field is not empty, use the salutation and last name plus the text is awaiting your call. Let's see how this variable works in action. Let's call the variable names. Let's use the names variable in our text block. We do this by simply adding the bracket variable names to the text block. Let's go to the buyer view and see how it works. So we see that if the buyer selects no salutation, the first and last names will be used in the text block. If the buyer does select a salutation, however, the salutation and last name will be used. This is a very simple variable rule. With SmartCanvas, you can create very, very sophisticated rules to drive the way data is presented based on buyer input. So there we have it, a functional business card with text and images, switches to hide or show layers, form fields, and variables. This concludes the Basic Design Principles tutorial. Happy designing!